Welcome, Coleman Report Live, Katie, Kentucky. Thank you for joining us. John Riosti out of Virginia, American banker, and Lance Sexton. This is we got a full panel. We got a ton of information, so let's get into it. Let's go to the polls. This is a follow-up on yesterday's question, and that is we realized that there are lenders who are doing PLP and Main Street lending who aren't necessarily a 7A lender. So we'd like to know who our audience is. Lance, what's your best guess?
I think we're going to have a majority that are regular lenders, but I think there's going to be,
Lance, you got to quit looking at the answers before the questions.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, although I would like to see more non-bank lenders, CDFIs.
More fintech lenders who were joining us. Other, obviously, trade organizations, lobbyists, and I know we get some borrowers every now and then. Very good. Thank you. That helps us very much. Follow up on an article John wrote. John, are you outsourcing your PPP loan portfolio? Yes, no. I guess your emphasis on your reporting was for credit unions, correct?
Well, I wouldn't call it emphasis. That's just the latest institution that we know of that decided to sell its just about all of its PPP loans. So, and that was the Fountainhead.
They're not selling for a premium. They were just getting them off their books, correct?
They didn't disclose that, so okay. I can't really comment on that because I don't know. But the main thing is what the CEO told me is they're getting them off the books as they gear up for more regular business, their traditional business.
Yeah, and that's more important for credit unions than it is for lenders, obviously, on their balance sheet. Let's see what the answers are. No, 90% say they're going to hang on to them. 4% are going to sell them. Very interesting. I thought there'd be a little bit more in that.
That actually falls in line with the first question asking who our audience is. Most of your SBA participant lenders have the ability to service the portfolio and are not willing to take the haircut it takes to, which I need a haircut, by the way, not willing to take the haircut that it requires to sell the portfolio. Every institution I've talked to is waiting for the final nugget on forgiveness. Because if we do get the simplified forgiveness for the smaller PPP loans, then the servicing side of it becomes fairly simple. If we don't, then it's going to be a lot of work.
Right.
Would you expect the numbers to change a little bit, Lance? Maybe some of that 90% to go down closer to 85, 80%?
I do agree with you, John. I think that if we do not get the simplified forgiveness, I think there'll be more institutions that look for outsourcing PPP servicing and forgiveness. But I think right now nobody's quite sure whether that's going to happen or not, and everybody's including borrowers and banks and credit unions and non-bank lenders are all sitting back and saying, okay, if we get the simplified forgiveness, we're good. We'll take care of it.
Katie, that number's awfully high. I know historically that number has been lower. Do you recall offhand? For some reason, I'm thinking 50, 60% we're going to hold on to them, and a sale of 25, 30%. Is my memory correct on that?
I think a lot of more people were saying, I don't know before. And I think that's where it got shifted. I think a lot more people seem more decisive now saying no.
I would say in the, for the two set of buyers that I've talked to, the Loan Source and Fountainhead, they wouldn't necessarily be surprised at that number because they said a lot of institutions are, just like Lance said, are waiting for other shoes to drop before they make a decision.
Well, Lance and I both said they'd be out by June 30th. John, how do we do on that guess?
We're
We're still waiting.
Depends on, Bob, it depends on which calendar we're using.
That's right.
There's got to be a calendar out there that supports it.
The Greek Byzantine, I don't know. This is an interesting question. How are you bringing in new business with your BDOs, your underwriters? We had the report yesterday that said 72% of the lobbies are open, John. I thought you'd find that interesting. But how are you meeting? Are they meeting in the 72% of the lobbies that are open? Or are you going out there? Virtual telesales, 62%, site visits 17%, and office meetings 21%. Any shock on that, Lance?
Not at all. 100% of my work right now is being done with GoToMeeting, virtual meetings, email, telephone. So I'm not surprised by that at all.
I'm sorry,
Bob.
doing for us document signing? Are we still doing e-signatures? Is that do we need wet signatures? What is your best practice?
It's kind of a combination. I think electronic signatures has, of course, taken more prominence during the pandemic, but closing companies are still closing loans with wet signatures, Bob. They just do it differently. They, some loans are being closed with documentation sent overnight. One closing, Bob, they actually met in a parking lot of a title company and passed documents from window to window.
During daylight hours, otherwise that seems a little shady.
Yeah, title companies and attorneys are getting more creative in how they close SBA loans, and so are the financial institutions that do it.
I love it. And please tell me you did not disperse that loan in cash.
Yeah, well, there's a big paper sack full of money, Bob, that's brought out and passed from window to window.
All right, we're going to move on before Lance ends up in Fraud Friday. Have you funded we talked about Main Street lending yesterday, John, and we realized we did not ask anybody that they've actually funded a loan. We asked if they're planning on doing it, but I guess the program's been available, John, since June or July 1, but 2% say yes, 95% no. I assume that's not a shock to anybody.
No, it's just getting off the feet. And one interesting thing about Main Street so far is to date, the number of lenders is, I guess, relatively low based on PPP standards. I mean, PPP, 5,000 plus lenders, 5,500, whatever the number was here, it's, I doubt it's a tenth of that. So to date. Maybe that will change.
Well, very good. John, tell us what's going on in Washington and what are you covering?
Well, I did, I was about to say attend, but I did listen in, I guess, on the hearing yesterday. It was very interesting. They had Brett Palmer, talking about SBICs, and he has sort of a very, getting into, an interesting part of SBA, but it is part of SBA, but his proposal is, a number of small, he called them micro funds, that would focus on lending to disadvantaged communities, to businesses that really don't need large sums of money. And because of that, they are perhaps ignored or passed over by the larger funds, by banks, by others. So, micro funds focusing on all kinds of disadvantaged groups. And they also, talked about 7A. They had a restaurant owner in New York, and she was saying that the way things are with her business, the money she's able to generate right now at a fraction of her capacity isn't enough to stay in business much longer. She got an SBA loan, a PPP loan, but it sounds like she needs another. She needs, certainly she needs assistance. And that's what they were talking about. She had an interesting take. She said, both for herself and a number of her colleagues in the industry. These are independent restaurants; they're not franchise restaurants. They are afraid to spend the money, or they've returned it because they said they can't afford a situation where they'd be left with loans, as opposed to after some of the money was forgiven.
Yeah, John, we're in phase 2 in California. Our restaurants now are all closed. All the bars are closed. All the restaurants are closed.
Right.
Now, I was able to go out yesterday. As long as you eat outside, you're okay. But, you have these restaurants, and as you said, how much capacity they have and their overhead. And it's tough to run a restaurant these days.
Yeah, and she made the point, even if, they had large capacity outside, people are still reluctant to sort of gather in communal settings. So
Yeah.
outside, inside, it just gets down to what you said. It's tough to run a restaurant.
Yeah. Let's see, what else is going on? Oh, my question to you, John, is this. We're starting to see little chipping away at PPP. It's still not Main Street criticism. Do you still see strong bipartisan, when I mean bipartisan, I'm talking unanimous support on the Hill for this type of stimulus?
I see strong bipartisan support for some type of PPP4, that bill. There's still an enormous amount of money left. The program right now, we were talking a little bit before the show, I was talking to someone, it's sort of neutral right now, with some money going out, but a lot of money coming back in, and that was referenced yesterday at the hearing. There's certainly a will to do something with that extra, that sort of leftover money, the remaining money. It's a big pot of money. I'm just thinking it's worth about 6 years of regular SBA lending. $130 billion. So,
Katie, what are the numbers what are your latest numbers that you show, Katie?
For what?
In PPP, what's the balance? How much do we have available?
I think last I saw was 131 billion.
It hasn't moved off that. And Katie, the date is it's been extended to August 8th. Am I correct on that? Very good.
right. And
The thing too is that,
I'm sorry, Lance.
well, that $130 billion being available, it's hovered around $130 billion now for the better part of 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's,
So that means that the loans are the smaller loans. The ones who did the larger loans already got their application and their money in, and also the cancellation and returning of funds. So they get credit for that as well. So great. Let's see. Anything else you want to talk about Washington, John?
Just, as Congress gets closer to coming back, the dialogue is heating up, and I saw just a few moments before the show, the Independent Community Bankers, ICBA, released a letter, including their PPP agenda. And, obviously a more straightforward forgiveness was at the top. They had an interesting proposal. I guess I'd seen it before, but I had forgotten about it or didn't follow up on it as I should. But they're asking that SBA, once forgiveness is done, purchase any residual loan from the lenders. So, if there's a residual 5 or 6 or 10%.
We are not through. There's going to be continued changes. And that's why I always ask you the question, as long as there's that support in the Hill, and I believe it's still there, and I'm glad to hear that, and there will continue to change it. And especially for the states that have now gone to phase 2 of a close down, we're back to where we were in March. So it's hey, we have a couple of questions. This one's for you, Lance. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we want SBA is, who put this up here? Katie, tell us about this. Seeking comments on PPP loan.
All I can do is pretty quick so you can get to the questions, but this is just a Federal Register notice that came out this morning. The SBA needs to get public comments before they're allowed to request additional data from the borrowers and from lenders. And so that is what that Federal Register notice is about. And it just goes into detail about they were requesting more information on whether the collection of information is necessary for the agency to properly perform functions. That's the essential focus of that notice.
We have a question from David Lance, which this is in your wheelhouse. What are your thoughts on a borrower getting a loan who's a shareholder with an outstanding loan from a shareholder? I assume it would be counted against the MSLP eligible amount. Do we need to subordinate it? What do we do, Lance?
Well, I'm thinking that David's thoughts are correct, that it would be counted against the eligible amount and that it would need to be subordinated. So I think David's right on point with his thought process there.
And also, it's the lender who gets to make that decision, correct, Lance?
That's correct. Most of the underwriting standards on the Main Street lending program, even though they didn't use the word prudent lending, it is prudent lending standards. So I think it does fall on the lender.
Very good. Very good. We are launching a new product, Lance. I think you'd be interested in this. It's for your C-suite. It's for your board of directors. The top 10 things you need to know about SBA. Obviously, SBA, PPP, Main Street, all that stuff. And it's geared. It's going to be a monthly. We'll be listing the top 10 things. It's geared for a quick synopsis for your stakeholders so they know what's going on. We don't expect your board of directors to sit through this excellent presentation every day. But they do need to have a recap, especially with all the updates. So we're going to be launching that. And we're still we're changing the forgiveness application. We're going to do a PPP update next week. That's our current plan. Is that your understanding?
Hopefully, we'll have some additional information to update with.
Kiki asked a question, Lance. I don't have the answer. Do you know what the expected timing for tax transcripts are currently in terms of response?
I don't have a solid answer other than I heard from our underwriters that they're doing a better job than they have over the past 2 or 3 months of getting tax transcripts back. It's still slow. So it's important to get the 4506Ts early in the underwriting process and go ahead and ship them off and get the transcripts back. You can't wait till you're about to the closing table and then do that. So I don't have an exact answer to the question, but I was talking, sorry guys, the fly is buzzing around my face. Don't have an exact answer, but my underwriters that work in our organization were telling me that they were getting a little better on timing than they have in the previous month.
Can you define it a little better?
I cannot define it.
Months, what are we talking?
I don't think it's taken months, Bob. I just think that it's taken 3 or 4 weeks to get transcripts back.
Yeah, I mean, we're not in the 3 to 5 day turnaround. As an aside, totally irrelevant, but a friend of mine, his passport expired. And, well, first of all, he can't travel anywhere, but at least he decided to go ahead and get it done. He sent it in April. He still doesn't have it back. So, it's amazing. All these little things do affect us tremendously. Hey, John, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. I love your insights. Stay safe, Katie, as always. Katie, what are you going to do for your hair for your wedding?
I don't know yet. My mom at least cuts it, so I don't have to worry about going to the barber, but that stuff's all closed right now in California. So.
I'm sorry. This is really personal. I feel so sad for Katie, John, and Glenn. She's getting married, and the church informed her yesterday, don't bother to show up.
Whoa.
Goodness gracious.
I guess we're doing backyard thing now.
All right, well, a little, the old backyard with hot dog barbecue. There you go. We're all
you go.
God, just salute you for our daughters. Very good. Hey, thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Talk to you tomorrow.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye.